Hey fam, welcome back to another Story Hacker podcast. Today we're talking about the story of productivity.
You're listening to the Story Hacker podcast.
Yo, this is the Story Hacker podcast. I am your host. My name is Nick Ovaya, and here at the Story Hacker podcast, we believe that better stories lead to brighter futures, and we take a look at psychology, script writing, and marketing because those three things are the zeitgeist of what gives us our story narrative identity. And we believe that better stories lead to brighter futures when we can start to change the story we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world around us. Today, we're talking about productivity, and it's something that has always been at the forefront of my mind. I've been the person to always research productivity at any level, whether that's, software. I love software. That's just one of the things that is so fun, is thinking through how can we organize our work in a way that helps us become more productive. And so things like Asana was something that I really got into early on once it branched out of Facebook. And then after that, things like Monday, ClickUp, Todoist. I've gone through all of those, have multiple journals of bullet journaling, the best self-co, like anything that you can think as a container for productivity. I've done it. I've been there. I've been this productivity geek because I believed that the more productive you are, the better you are going to be at life. And this perspective was shattered for me about 2 years ago. I started reading this book, and I've mentioned it quite a bit, but we'll get into some detail today. I've been reading a book, and it is called 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. And so I am one to tell you that this book is not for the faint of heart. It deals with a lot of topics that are existential in nature, and also deals with a lot of non-existence. And so if you get really weirded out, here's your trigger warning when it comes to existence and non-existence. And it's a thing. It definitely is a thing. But Oliver Burkeman, in his seminal book, 4,000 Weeks, makes a point to tell us that the work that we're doing, it's not human in any way, shape, or form. And so I love what he does. And, 4,000 Weeks Productivity for Humans, it feels like it's a deceptive title because it actually is asking you to embrace your limitations. And it's not a typical quote unquote productivity book. It felt more like if Maria Kondo asked you to evaluate your life and its work and let go of the things that are not serving you and humanity to its greater good. That sounds ridiculous. It does. But I want to give you a quote from Oliver Burkeman just to get an idea of what he's talking about here. He says, "Convenience culture seduces us into imagining that we might find room for everything. We might find room for everything important by eliminating only life's tedious task, but it's a lie. You have to choose a few things, sacrifice everything else, and deal with the inevitable sense of loss that results." Here he's essentially saying you have so many spinning plates, and the thought process in America and in our Western culture is that you can just add more spinning plates if you get faster, if you get better, if you try harder. And I hate this book because it repels the capitalistic Western Protestant ideology inside of me. It's something that I've grown up with. Work hard, have fun, fight fair. It's a mantra. It's a good mantra, but it was really, 90% work hard. And so just to be honest with you, my work and my achievements gave me meaning. And if you were to take away the achievements, who am I? Who am I as a person? What is my value if I can't achieve? What is my value if I can't add value to another person? And this is something that's wrong with the American society because I believe this to be something like a paycheck theology. I think the desk is the altar that which we come to worship. The work that we do, the time that we spend is our worship. Desk being the altar, and our work is here to give us identity. And our paycheck is the fruit of what we get. And in this paycheck theology, when our measurements of success as a human being are based upon physical things like a car, your square footage of your home, bank accounts, this is like a religion of financial gluttony, and it's fueled by hyper-individualism, competition, and a social media culture of comparison. And the reason that I tell you this is because if we don't start to pull back the story around us, if we don't start to really take serious the story around us, we could get so easily sucked in and feel very, very empty. And that empty feeling comes from you not meeting the criteria of the world around you. You don't have as many followers as somebody else. You don't have the views. You don't have the resources. Your life doesn't look as perfect as somebody who's been curating the nice Instagram profile or the nice TikTok profile. And the truth is, that person might have a great profile, but might be empty inside, might be friendless, might be in a place to where they have a lot of money, but cannot spend it in any meaningful way and is disconnected, depressed, and hurting and lonely. And I think this is key because Oliver Burkeman is asking us to embrace our limitations. If you embrace limitations, you become more human. And I think that is so, so important. I think one of the things that we still suffer from is this up and to the right culture. And up and to the right, if you just look at what Spotify, any major technology company is, technology has become ubiquitous and has saturated the market, has saturated our ideologies. People have kind of gotten bored with it. And since people have gotten bored with it, they're not spending as much money. NFTs was kind of like the height of like, oh, hey, how can a digital product be worth thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but actually not provide any tangible anything to anyone. And I love the blockchain technology. Don't get me wrong, great technology. But when you come to NFTs and the NFT bros and everything that they were selling, I think what started to happen was people started to be really disillusioned. Some people started to make a lot of money in the NFT space. And a lot of people were selling courses on like, how can you make money in the NFT space? And then the bubble just popped. And I think up and to the right, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for your relationships. Your relationships are not always going to go up and to the right. You're going to have conflict. And if you have an up and to the right mentality culture, what's going to happen is the moment that a relationship isn't going up and to the right, you're going to jettison it. The moment that your family isn't going up and to the right, what can you do? Are you going to fire your family? The moment that your joy isn't going up and to the right, what happens to you and to your life? The moment that your art just doesn't feel as inspired, the music that you're making just doesn't resonate with you anymore, it's not going up and to the right, do you burn it? Do you become less important? Do you become less human? See, community and health are human bodies and just the intangibles. We need those in order to function. We need community. We need healthy human bodies. And pushing yourself up and to the right, it is not natural. In nature actually takes breaks. Like when you look at the season of growth, there is a spring season where there's, things are growing. Then there is a summer season where it's that harvest time. Then there is a fall where things start to get dormant. And then there is a winter time where it is just completely dormant. And these are called seasons. And the reason that these seasons are important to take a look at philosophically is because before the invention of electricity and before, all of that, our sleep, we used to get 10 hours of sleep a night. And the reason that this is important for this is because hustle culture says you can sacrifice sleep. And what tends to happen is a lot of people don't go into REM sleep until the early morning, meaning 5, 6, in some people 7 or 8 a.m. And what this does, if you continue to mess with your circadian rhythms, you start to lose brain capacity, you start to lose thinking capacity. And sleep is one of the key foundations for your mental health, for your physical health. And what happens within hustle culture, what happens when we have toxic productivity is that we're willing to sacrifice sleep. And sleep is a cornerstone. It is one of those things that is essential to your health and essential to your mental well-being. And then also having so much coffee, skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, maybe eating like some peanuts and, some sugary donuts. What this does to the human body is it treats the human body like it's going to last forever. And we have to understand that nature in its organic state has seasons, and your body in its organic state is going to have seasons as well. This has been documented extensively in Japan. They have a word, karoshi, and it means death by overwork. Here's a quote. from Wired magazine, and this is the Kuroshi Japan overwork culture. It says 30 years ago, when Keio University sociologist Junko Kitanaka first started to study Japan's culture of working oneself to death, it was considered a novelty to Western culture. In the 1990s, stories of mostly middle-aged businessmen working so many hours that they would drop dead from body failure or opt to end their lives rather than return to office were received outside Japan as a peculiar cultural phenomenon. When Kitanaka presented to academic audiences in Europe and North America, she says they did not understand the mentality of people who wouldn't go see a psychiatrist and who were driven to die for work. A few decades later, this idea isn't so alien. The pandemic has triggered widespread concerns about physical and sociological toll of prolonged stress, sleep deprivation, and social isolation. A landmark study by the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization published earlier this month found that 745,000 people died in 2016 from stroke and ischemic heart disease as a result of having worked at least 55 hours a week. This is crazy. Just 15 more hours a week past the normative 40. 745,000 people in 1 year died of stroke and heart disease. And the truth is, nature has seasons, and seasonality means that sometimes you have to lie dormant. The earth is given rest. Rest is a subversive thing in our current culture. And the reason that rest is so subversive is because there's this story that you're going to be left behind. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to rest, the reason it's so subversive in our current culture is because when we look at capitalism, when we look at work culture, when we look at productivity, it is the people who are holding that mantra high, that hustle culture, grind it out. You can rest when you die. Those things are not producing health, mental wellness. They're not creating a better story nor a brighter future. And if we don't rest, we're going to miss the moments that define our life. If we don't rest well, we're going to continue to miss our life in its entirety. I've had a great remorse about maybe about a year ago. I think it was October of 2023 or November of 2023. I was asked to speak at my job to all the staff. We have about 36 staff. This was over a Zoom call, and I'm just talking about some books that I found on rest. One of them was called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And I'm talking about it, and as I'm talking to these people, I start to get deeply emotional. And I started to realize that regret, some of the regrets I had in life, specifically around overwork, specifically around missing a lot of my kids' early childhood functions in order to make sure that, my reputation and the work was going out and the organization could be looked at as a shining beacon of hope, quote unquote. I started to realize that the remorse, the regret was indicative of what I'm going to experience more of if things don't change. And so I'm confessing to all of my colleagues that I'm overworking, and I just start to get choked up and I just really start to tell them the truth of I've missed a lot of my children's early life and I regret that deeply. But I'm going to make a change now. And so, letting people know I'm going to make a change. And one of the things that probably came from that was the seed that was planted of there was some narrative tension there. I was not the person who I said I was or who I wanted to be, and then also realizing that I had these wants, these needs, and these desires. If you were to fast forward about almost 7 months later, my ADD diagnosis, getting on stimulant medication, what it helped me to do, it helped me to realize that my overwork was a product of overexhausted central nervous system. And when my brain started to have more focus and capacity from the stimulants, what the stimulants do is they actually make you, it's an amphetamine. And so you're just ramped up. It's like giving you like a little bit of nitrous oxide, so to speak, or nitrogen, just really to push that engine. And so my heart's beating faster. I'm feeling better. I can't sleep as much, but I'm thinking clear. And this clarity started to build something inside of me, a self-efficacy, an internal locus of control, that when stuff started to come across my plate, I started to look at it and I was like, this is impossible to get done in one day. I've had multiple years of reading books like The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, Emotional Healthy Spirituality, where a lot of these guys are talking about, taking rest, taking time. The time that it takes is the time that it takes, and you can't shortcut that in any way, shape, or form. 4,000 Weeks, another one by Oliver Burkeman, the one that we're talking about today. And all of those things started to coalesce when the brain had proper stimulation and it had, focus. And I started to realize this is impossible to get done in one day. And then I started to see behind the curtain. A lot of times I thought that because I wasn't able to focus from ADD, that other people had a better sense of time. They had a better sense of understanding. And so if they're telling me, hey, we didn't get this, I'm like, oh, you know what? You're probably right. And so everybody was always right. And I was never the one who was in control of my own time or my own thoughts around what is appropriate for work and what is not appropriate for work. And through the ADD diagnosis, through medication, started to realize this is overwork and this is overwhelm. And pulled back significantly. We talked about that in another podcast called Descending the Corporate Ladder. And it was at that point that I realized that if I continue in this way, I am not going to be healthy. The health that I was seeking was in spurts and sporadic, meaning that I would go for runs, I would have a healthy week, but then if things were to get a little crazy, I would sacrifice my body, sacrifice my time. I wouldn't have any limits. And, because of just the way that I thought about work and my position, said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Realizing that that's not healthy, and that's not putting my family, that's not putting myself, that's not putting anything in its proper place. And it was through that process and descending the corporate ladder, talking to my team saying, hey guys, I no longer can do this. I don't have the capacity. And I actually want to be in a season of life where I have more time with my kids. Because, after this, after 40s, come the 50s and 60s, mobility, I hope to be mobile, but you never know. You just never know what the future might hold. And so now is the opportunity and now is the time to take advantage of the health, of the, cognition and all of the things that are very, very important. And so one thing that I want to share with you about that story is it was through focus, it was through intention, and it was through coming away saying, I'm probably not going to have as much money, I'm not going to have as much influence, but I'd rather have a life that is human than thinking that I am a workhorse, that I am a machine, and that I'm going to continue to work in ways that are not serving me and also not serving the people around me. Because people look at me and say, this guy has such a high capacity, I need to meet his capacity. What they're not seeing is the behind the scenes when I'm waking up at 3 a.m. They're not seeing the crazy copious amounts of alcohol that are needed to get me to sleep and to have my brain shut down. They are not seeing the way that I am just grumpy and mean to my family. And I think what tends to happen is that what we start to say is we start to give a pass to the most productive, and we start to say, hey, those things don't matter. The way your character doesn't matter because you're getting stuff done. You're generating income. You are, productive. And because we live in a theology of paycheck, we live in a world where we worship work for itself. The people who do the most work, they also get the most praise and the most worship. And their character is never called into account. And for me, my character means a lot to me. And I think one of the things that I learned early on is as a person, like I don't want to lie to myself. And for so long was lying to myself. The cortisol levels of the 3 a.m. wake-ups, the irritability, just not being happy, not pursuing what I love. And then whenever I would try to participate in anything that I loved, it just felt like a shell of what it was. Having no flow, like me high check sent me high. And flow state was something that I was just so used to. And then not being in flow state was just years and years and years of that. I want to leave you with this quote from 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. It says, our lives, thanks to the finitude, are inevitably full of activities that we're doing for the very last time. Just as there will be a final occasion on which I pick up my son, a thought that appalls me, but one that's hard to deny. Since I surely won't be doing it when he's 30, there will be a last time that you visit your child at home, you swim in the ocean, or you make love, or you have a deep conversation with a certain close friend. Yet usually there's no way to know in that moment that you're doing it for the last time. We should therefore try to treat every such experience with the reverence we'd show if it were for the final instance of it. And indeed, there's a sense in which every moment of life is a last time. It arrives, you'll never get it again, and once it passed away, your remaining supply of moments will be one smaller than before. To treat all these moments as a stepping stone towards some future that demonstrates a level of obliviousness to our real situation, that would be jaw-dropping if it weren't for the fact that we were doing it all the time. I think one of the movies that encapsulates what he said very succinctly and very funnily, that's not even a word, but very comedically is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That movie was just a joke. It was fun to an extent. It was sad to see that this guy was not taking life seriously. But his mantra was life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. For me, that stopping point has been taking a 24-hour sabbatical to where I can stop, I can rest, I can get involved with the hobbies and the things that bring me joy, that bring me flow. And even if it's just for a 24-hour period over, once every week or 4 times a month, what that does for me is it brings life to where, and it shows me that I am not a machine. It shows me that I am not ultimately in control, but the things that I do control, I will control. And being finite is something to be embraced and not something to be appalled at. And so as I ask you the deep, deep question, what is it that you're doing with your life? Are you missing it because you are so hyper fixated on the outputs of your productivity? Are you willing to take time? Are you willing to take a 24-hour period and live life as if it was life in heaven? My name is Nick. This is the Story Hacker Podcast. If you enjoyed any part of this podcast, you can reach out to me on any of the social medias at Nick_Ovaya. And as always, until we chat again, I hope you tell the world a great story. Peace.